Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Operation and Public Safety Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, August the 2nd, National Night Out. Gonna have fun tonight. Okay, we got 5 items on our agenda tonight. Kim, roll call, please.
Council President Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and move to item number 4, business. And we'll start with approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I would move for approval of minutes for July 19, 2022.
Second.
Motion and a second. In discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. We'll move on to item number B, payment of the bills.
Mr. Chair, I would move for payment of the bills.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Moving on to item number C, equity strategic plan update by UL.
Did you want to do that one?
Well, that's kind of up here.
Agenda approval?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, you don't know that.
We good to go. Right.
Operations.
All eyes on Kim.
No pressure.
She can have it.
There it is. Thank you, Kim. Good afternoon. This is Uriel Varela. I'm here to give you another update on the Race and Equity Strategic Plan. And as a reminder, this plan is being created, co-designed by both stakeholders, community stakeholders, and internal core team. Today, I'm going to be talking about 2 areas of focus, the final 2 areas of focus of this plan. One is citywide training, the other one is community engagement, and then I'll speak on next steps after this. So as a reminder, the 2 areas of focus that I'll be focusing right now or today are training, and the goal for training is the City of Kent will provide anti-racist and culturally relevant training along with other topics that foster constructive communication and cross-cultural understanding for city representatives and the broader community. And on community engagement, the City of Kent engages in relationship building through ongoing dialogue, outreach, and inclusion, centering racial equity in our approach. So apologies for the small font here, but for training, I'm going to read the actions and I'm going to give a brief description as to why. So for the actions around training, we came up with employees. These are the actionable steps that we'll be taking. Employees will complete yearly mandatory training. The training will equip employees with tools to facilitate more complex conversations around race, equity, diversity, and belonging. So last year, we had our first mandatory training. We had a 95% completion rate of that training. That was the Aaron Jones training on Equity 101. This year, we're working on training on emotional intelligence that will be, again, mandatory for employees. The next item is the Equity and Inclusion Speaker Series will continue to provide presentations and workshops for employees using an anti-racist intersectional framework. And we've had 2 of these Speaker Series events already this year. The one happened last week, and it was with Hassan Jeffries, who talked about confronting hard history. The third item on this, or actionable item, is the City of Kent will reinstate the Cultural Conversations program, bringing culturally relevant training from Kent-based community leaders. So when I first started here at the City of Kent, we had this program established where we would bring residents or people with leaders who represented different communities to speak to our staff members about lived experiences, language, how to best work with the residents. It was a very popular program, and the stakeholders as well as the employees want it back because it was a good way of meeting other folks in our communities and knowing about their communities as far as best ways or best practices when it comes to engaging folks from different cultures. And number 4 is employees will receive training on the city's language access plan and Title VI plan. As I stated before, the language access plan is already in, the draft is completed. It has to be analyzed by our executive leadership team. And we're currently working on Title VI plan, which will be included in, will be analyzed by our internal team. And finally, community engagement best practices to be developed. Through this process, we've learned a lot about ways of engaging with community, especially around strategic plans. So we want to share that information with other departments. Are there any questions about the first part in actionable steps for training?
I got a question on the training. As a matter of fact, I just took a monthly inclusion diversity training just today at work. One thing that we do different, we take that training as a group, as a team, and we have dialogue, because one is taking and checking the box. I think the other part is how you go about reinforcing and getting people to be part of the conversation. I wonder, like for the leaders and departments, do they engage with the team and have more dialogue about what they hear throughout some of these trainings?
So the upcoming training will be in person. It will be a full-day training or 2 half-day trainings where it's going to be a conversation. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities to talk about what's being learned at the time. We've also created an employee resource group that focuses on establishing that space to have those difficult conversations if folks have questions after receiving the training.
Right. Thank you. Any other question, team?
Okay, I'll go on to the next one. The next one is mostly focused on residents, because when we heard about training, we heard that residents also wanted to be part of these trainings and receive some of these trainings. The Equity and Inclusion Speaker Series, very similar to the internal presentation. We have a resident presentation, for residents to learn more about these histories and difficult conversations, difficult topics. So we want to continue to provide that for our residents. We had our first in-person since 2019 event last week. We had a good participation from our residents, and we were asked to share more information about the upcoming events. So to us, that's been very successful, a very successful program that we want to continue to provide for our residents. And finally, the city will partner with community groups to provide a streamlined in-language Camp 101 program. So when we did the onboarding session for our community stakeholders, we did a streamlined presentation on Camp 101. It took about 2 hours, and our stakeholders were really, they did really enjoy that presentation and asked if that could be shared with other organizations throughout the community. So that is something, in addition to the Camp 101 program that's already established, that's in person, we would be going and partnering with community-based organizations to share this information.
Great.
So now on to community, any questions?
I did have a question on that. Would we also, in a 2-hour format, would we offer a digital option on that too, like a recorded?
Oh, it was a recorded, so we shared a recording of the different departments and a brief description, and then we had, for this onboarding session, we had our former CAO provide the presentation. So we have that outlined ready for that. So as far as digital, yes, we can share that information as well, digitally. So now we're on to community engagement. So the goal for, again, is the City of Kent engages in relationship building through ongoing dialogue, outreach, and inclusion, centering racial equity in our approach. The first one is the city will analyze the procurement process using an equity lens and recommend actionable steps to diversify contracting. This was something that was identified both by leadership and by community stakeholders. This was included in the equity matrix that was developed when we first started this work. So we're including that into the strategic plan because that was identified by both the community and internal groups. The city will also publish disaggregated women and minority-owned business and community-based organization BIPOC-led contract data. I know that we share that already, but it has to be more visible. That's what we were asked by our community members. Who are we contracting with? Are we contracting with minority and women-owned businesses? Can we share that information with the public? So that is one of the asks that was made by the community members. And finally, the city staff will participate in local minority business expos. So one of the difficulties when it comes to knowing how to go into contract with the city is knowing how to go into contract with the city. So we need to be out there engaging with minority and women-owned businesses to share information on as far as the process goes and how they can be working with the city of Kent. There are various opportunities out there. I know that there's one large King County Minority and Women-Owned Business Expo where cities are asked to participate and share information about their contracting practices and processes. So this is, the goal would be to have at least 4 events a year for city staff to participate in. Any questions on that piece? Yes.
I don't know if you have information, Uriel, but the new procurement process, do you have updates on that, or will you be able to share that with us later?
Not yet. No
Okay.
procurement updates. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes. So the next one, I want to share something before I present this information. So this is not an indictment on the current work being done by the Parks Department. Art was identified as one of the most constructive ways of engaging our diverse community. So this is an opportunity for us to share the progress that we've made in that area. So the Parks Department will analyze the cultural arts program using an equity lens and recommend actionable steps to diversify the community offerings. And the next one is the art displayed in the city-owned and operated facilities reflect racial and cultural diversity of our residents. We were asked why in some areas there are some artwork, pieces of art that are very diverse, and others they don't see it as often. So one of the easier ways that was shared by the community is let us see us in your buildings. It could be art, it could be employees. Art, again, it was explained to us that art is a reflection of lived experiences. So it's important that we reflect our community's lived experiences in our art. So that is why that was added in the strategic plan. Any questions there? Okay, and then we have the city department. City departments will continue to provide community members the opportunities to co-design citywide strategic plans. So one of the things that we've learned through this process of co-designing this strategic plan is that it is a really great way of developing those relationships and making folks feel included in the process and included in feeling that they belong in their own city. So it also creates a good pipeline for our boards and commissions. So after we completed this process, we have several of the stakeholders who want to be part of the Cultural Communities Board to continue the work. So if we continue to co-design plans, we will have more folks who are going to be interested in being part of our boards and commissions. So that is one of the reasons why we added that. And then finally, the Ready Office will create a co-designing, planning, and implementation toolkit for all city departments. We know that not all plans have that opportunity to co-design. So some plans need experts, subject matter experts, but when it comes to things that are going to be affecting the community, it's important that we include the community in the process. So that is why we want to create a toolkit for departments to facilitate that part of engagement with community members. Any questions on that? Okay, and finally, the City of Kent will join the Welcoming America Network, and the city will meet the welcoming certification requirements and become a recognized welcoming city. Welcoming America is one of the larger national nonprofits that provide best practices when it comes to working with immigrant communities. So I believe in the state of Washington, there are no official recognized cities, welcoming cities. There are multiple cities and jurisdictions who are members of this network. So at the moment, the process takes about 6 months. There are 15 core competencies that are part of this process, and we at the city already meet 12 of them. So we're really close to being named as a welcoming city in the state of Washington. We just need a few more things, a few more steps to get there, and this is going to be a big recognition if we're the first city in the state of Washington to be recognized as a welcoming city.
You said we met 12 already, and how many more we have?
Currently meet 12 of those categories, yes.
You need a total of 34?
There's a total of 34. There's 15 core competencies. Okay. So we have to meet the 15. If we meet 34, that's excellent.
Okay.
But 15 we have to meet as a requirement. So we are at 12 right now. So it's
Can you give me like an example for like what that looked like? Do you know off the top of your head?
Sure. So one of the requirements that we currently do not have is a service that provides immigrant populations an opportunity and resource to become citizens in this country.
Okay.
So that, I don't believe we have something like that. So that is one of the core competencies that we're missing. The other one is outside of our jurisdiction, so it's related to education. So that'll be a collaboration between the city of Kent and the school district.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And next steps, after this, we still have a couple of more weeks of internal vetting. We're going to meet with directors of the executive leadership team to analyze the strategic plan. And we are also meeting with other staff members who are tasked with responsibilities of the plan to make sure that there's an understanding as to why that was requested and to share more information as to the progress of those actionable steps that we're taking. And that is it.
Okay, excellent job. This stuff is getting exciting each time you come up here, so really making great stride, great progress. Any question, thought, team? Marley, you happy?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all righty.
Yeah, and I'm actually just looking at the requirements, and yeah, there's quite a few that I'm proud to say that we already meet. So.
Yeah, and I'm planning on coming back to you with the entire plan, I think early September.
Okay.
So for adoption, so.
Good job. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
report out, too. Okay, we're going to move on to our next item D. We're talking about a vision that been in place probably way before Brian was born. Really, the purchase of the sale agreement for the Ruth property. And really, I'm very excited about this here, how this is going to bring everything together. So it's pretty slick. So
Absolutely.
all yours, sir.
Taking a long time.
Council President Boyce and council members, it's a pleasure to be here today at Ops Committee. Thanks for allowing me to come and talk about this purchase sales agreement. We had an expedited timeline, so we had to kind of break normal protocol. I'm Brian Levenhagen, Deputy Director of the Parks Department. As Council President stated, this has been an acquisition the City of Kent has been working on for a long time. Just to prove that, I have a Kent News Journal from 1971 where Kent planner Jim Harris was up at Clark Lake and talking about how an East Hill Park was envisioned for the Clark Lake site. So, over 50 years and a lot of staff and councils and mayors that have made that happen over the years. So it's a.
Is Councilman Thomas on that paper there?
I remember that one. My ad is.
So, earlier this year, the seller approached us and laid out a timeline for completing a deal with the city. This is the last 3 parcels that will complete the Clark Lake Park assemblage. It's 17.31 acres. The seller has signed the purchase and sales agreement, so that's exciting. The $7.2 million purchase price was confirmed by an appraisal and appraisal review. The purchase will be funded by, we have a little over $2 million in our Parks Land Acquisition Fund right now to cover anything that's not obtained with grant funding. We have currently been awarded $2 million from King County Conservation Futures. We expect to be in a good position to get an additional $1 million from King County Conservation Futures later this year. So that'll cover $3 million of the acquisition cost. And then we are currently, right now, we have final presentations in August for 2 RCO grants that total $3 million, one through the WWRP Local Parks Program, the other one through the LWCF program. Both of those programs funded many of the parcels that make up the Clark Lake Park now. So we're cautiously optimistic that we'll be successful in those grant applications. We do have other contingency plans in place if we are not. But we feel good about it. One other thing to make note of in the purchase and sales agreement, the seller did request $100,000 in earnest money that was non-refundable. That would be paid at the end of September. The end of August. The transaction would close at the end of September. The reasoning was the amount of time and effort that's going to take to move out of the house by the closing date is significant. They've been there for decades, so a lot of work to be done there. So felt like that was a fair request that isn't out of the ordinary for a sale like this. And so they've also indicated, and it's not part of this agreement, but we are working on a separate donation agreement that they're open to a significant donation to be paid back to the city after the sale closes. So, it's a pretty big deal to be in position to complete this assemblage. I've been, the entire 20 years I've been at the city, this has been a huge priority for us. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have.
Brian, can you talk a little bit about just the land? I mean, you got a house on it and a couple of things. What do we vision that may turn out to be? Do we know yet?
Yeah, so, we have a master plan for Clark Lake Park. It was completed in 2005. That'll need to be updated. I think this parcel was left out of that original master plan. One thing that we're doing is, we're applying for grant funding for $6 million of the total price. We're reserving an acre to potentially be a site for an indoor facility of some kind. The grants that we apply for typically don't allow constructing indoor facilities, so it gives us more flexibility with what we can do with a site in the future, pending the kind of public process that we go through as part of updating the master plan. But obviously, anything we do there would have to work with the site. We are looking at completing the loop trail all the way around the lake. We see that as an early win, potentially even this fall after we close. You see all the trails up there on the aerial, finally making that connection and be able to walk all the way around the lake. It will be a pretty big deal, and just continue to increase the popularity of the park. So,
That's excellent. Councilman McCord?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Brian. This is very exciting, but just out of curiosity, why did it take us 50 years to purchase this property?
well, I think all of the different properties that make up Clark Lake Park, each one of the property owners want it to be a beautiful place to live, right? And so nobody really wanted to ever leave. And so, you kind of just have to continue that relationship and continue the conversation, and then be ready when the opportunity presents itself. And so, like I said here, after decades, the seller was finally willing to negotiate, laid out a timeline, and we were able to meet that timeline. And so, I think great things take time. Nothing's easy, but it's a big deal.
Yeah, you'd have to know Bill Ruth, too.
Bill Ruth, yeah, that's what I'm about to say, yeah. He's not around, but yeah. Yeah, but the good thing about it, we prepared ourselves. We're in position now. We knew this was coming, right? The fact that we are financially in position to take this on. So that's kudos to the team.
Stay ready.
Yep. Councilmember Larmer.
Yeah, I think this is really exciting, and I actually was just at Clark Lake this weekend, and so really excited to see this happening. And just a quick shout out, I actually went to Clark Lake with my dog because in the extreme heat, it's the one place you can go that's not paved. So it was just a great note to residents. It's a great place to walk your dog in these extreme temperatures. So.
Okay. You have a question or you want to do the honor?
Well, I have a comment.
Please.
Thank you, Council President. Congratulations, Brian. I know that you have been working on this for years and talking with the Ruth family for forever. That's why it took so long. So we're very excited and very thankful to the Ruth family for selling it to the city.
Definitely. Thank you.
Well, with that said, would you like to make a motion?
Yes. Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the mayor to take all action necessary and sign all documents to purchase the Ruth property located at 12410 Southeast 248th Street, Kent, Washington 98030 for $7.2 million plus closing costs, and subject to final purchase terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. This is a great day for the Parks Department. How about a clap, guys?
Yeah.
Hey. Good work, Parks team. Way to go. Okay. We're going to move on to item E. I was looking at F, but it's item E. Tammy, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Council. Tammy White, Acting City Attorney. I wish I was here with an item as interesting as Brian's, but I'm not. I'm here to talk to you again about our criminal code. And so I kind of want to give you a little bit of background and then explain sort of the reason to why I'm here today. So under state law, the City of Kent is charged with the financial responsibility to enforce and prosecute and adjudicate all misdemeanor crimes that occur within our jurisdiction. We can do that either by contracting with King County through an interlocal agreement where they take care of those services and we pay them for that, or we do them here ourselves. We've elected at the City of Kent to maintain our own municipal court through which we prosecute all of our misdemeanor and gross misdemeanor crimes. In order to do that through our code, what we've done is adopted a number of RCWs by reference. So we adopt globally all misdemeanors and gross misdemeanor crimes, as well as Class C felonies that occur within the city of Kent for prosecution in our municipal court. Additionally, we identify some specific RCW crimes that are included within that overall catch-all. So when I talked to you a couple weeks ago, one of the issues we were dealing with was updating the code because the state legislature had moved a bunch of statutes into another chapter. So we believe that overall catch-all catches all of that, but we also wanted to update those specific references. Well, another issue has come up based on another state provision where it says if we adopt codes by reference, they are to be filed in the city clerk's office. So we consider filed in to keep up with technology so that as we convert from paper over to electronic, documents are still filed in the clerk's office so long as they can be coordinated through our clerk through electronic means or coming to get the codes from the offices and providing that to the public. Well, we've had a defense attorney raise a motion in court to claim that no, filed in under the state law requires these physical papers be located in the clerk's office. So we had argument today on that issue, and we're awaiting the court to decide it. But out of an abundance of caution to make sure that we don't create an issue, since we don't know what the judge and courts are going to do with it, what I've brought before you today is an ordinance that readopts all of our existing Title IX, which adopts all of the RCWs again. And all of those paper copies are physically in the clerk's office today. So by you adopting this motion and this ordinance, it will reaffirm your prior enactments, your council meetings. So assuming you carry out of your committee today, you'll also have it at 5 o'clock tonight on your consent calendar.
Good.
So with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Okay, well, I think you did a good job of briefing us prior to them 2 meetings ago, then with the updates. I think we are good. Any other question, council member? Feel good about this?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna, Councilmember Thomas, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to declare an emergency and adopt ordinance number 4437, readopting, ratifying, and confirming all provisions adopted by reference in Title IX of the Kent City Code, including the crime of cyber harassment, and amending the code to clarify the filing obligations for future adaptations by reference under RCW 35A.12.140.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you so much, Tammy.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next item. We have our police chief Padilla, and this is around the Kent School District Resource Officer. There's no action, so info only. Chief.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Council President Boyce. That's correct. This is an FYI because I think it's a noteworthy thing we want to keep you updated on. So today I have information on our school resource officer contract extension with the Kent School District. As you may recall, last August you approved the contract. Thank you. Between us and KSD. This agreement allowed for the placement of 2 full-time school resource officers to cover the schools of Kent Meridian High, Kent Ridge High, Mill Creek Middle, and Meridian Middle Schools. Okay, so that's current. The agreement was for the initial term of 2021 through 2022 school years, with a provision that allowed for the extension of the agreement for 5 successive years if both parties agreed to, and the pay, salary, and benefits costs were adjusted per year, which should have been done. Lastly, the agreement provided the mayor had the authority to renew the agreement during the 5-year succession period. So we're working on that. We're in the process of getting the signatures done, which will include sending it to the school district for their approval through their council, board rather. We expect that to be completed this coming school year prior to the start. If signed, this new contract would run from September 1, 2022 through August 31st, 2023. As you know, I am a strong proponent for having our officers in the schools for a bunch of reasons. Those reasons include the security presence, I think, is very important nowadays. We still continue to have violent criminals want to cause harm at our schools. That's probably the first priority. But second, there's a real tangible value to having our officers up there engaging with our students in a non-law enforcement role, right? Being those mentors, being there talking, hanging out, engaging, you know, really building those positive relationships we hope will last a lifetime. So that's the information and the update. And Mr. President, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Chief. You stated we already, as a council, unanimously approved this here, so this is just more information around the contract. Any question from the team here? Okay, thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Okay, here comes Michelle with the good report.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Michelle.
I was just here 2 weeks ago, but I'm Michelle Ferguson. I'll be presenting the June 2022 monthly financial report. Okay, so highlighted on the first slide is sales tax, and it's still continuing to come in strong. So through June, we've received over $13 million in revenue in the general fund for sales tax, which is about $1.26 million over 2021 levels. So that's about 10.6%. If this trend continues, we could receive well over $25 million in the general fund for sales tax, which would be about $4 million over budget. Utility taxes have been highlighted on this slide. They're doing well, but you can see there's a variance between the prior year revenues and the actual revenues for this year, and that's because we moved the cable utility tax into the general fund last year in July, so that's part of the difference. And then also, we are seeing a decline in telephone utility taxes, but that's not new news. But electric utility taxes have been coming in higher than budgeted, and they're about $57,000 more a month, which if that trend continues, we'll get an extra $300,000 than we did last year total. At the bottom of the slide, that's going to be your other revenues, so intergovernmental license and permits, charges for services, fines and forfeitures, miscellaneous revenues, and transfers out. So the main thing I kind of wanted to point out, you see the bars on there, that's the budget, and then the line is where we are for actuals and the prior year actuals. There's a large difference because there's a large amount of transfers out this year, $15 million worth of transfers out, and 12 of that is ARPA related. So as the year goes on, we'll continue to transfer out to projects as needed, and the bulk of that will be done in October, whether they need it or not. So that's why I just want to point that out, that it looks low, but it's just because of transfers. Okay. And also a little bit because of fines and forfeitures and miscellaneous revenues are coming in under budget, as it has been all year. And I've highlighted those on this slide, that they are under budget and under 2021 revenues. Most of that is just for lower fines that have been issued and paid, and other miscellaneous revenues. Those aren't big generators of revenues, but it does affect the budget slightly. And then down under the bottom, under expenditures, most of the departments are expected to come in under budget, but the one that is looking like it's going to be over is fire contracted services, and that's because there was a payment that was supposed to be paid in 2021, but it didn't get paid until 2022. So we'll continue to monitor that as the year goes on, but it's likely that we might need a budget change to cover what was supposed to be paid last year this year. So there's not a whole lot to report on these, but this is a different view. Normally we look at month-to-month comparison, and this one is kind of more budget to year-to-date since we're kind of halfway through the year. So just pointing out the ones that are really off from budget to year-to-date. Human services, the majority of those are going to be transferred out to projects. That is where the House Bill 1406 and 1590 are, and we transfer all of the 1406 and 60% of the 1590. Those are done at year end when we get those revenues in. The drainage fund, they are supposed to be using $7.5 million of fund balance, and most of that's for projects, but so far they haven't had a lot of need to transfer into those projects, but at the end of the year we will get those transferred. And those transfers total $15 million, and so far we've only transferred $900,000, so that's where that discrepancy comes from. And the unemployment fund, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. Expenditures are coming in lower for claims, and so we haven't had to pay as much, so hopefully if this continues, we will be able to come in under budget and around where we were for actuals at last year and the year before. Are there any questions?
Everything looks pretty good. No outliers. Not seeing any.
No, nothing too off the wall right now.
Okay. Well, thank you. No questions? All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, that's the last of our report. So we have council at 5, so we'll take a break here for about 20 minutes, 24 minutes. Okay, we adjourn. Thank you.